Hey, Ben, welcome. It's nice to see you. Thanks for joining me. Really excited to have you join us.
Hey, good to see you again.
Awesome. And welcome to the audience. I'm Raj Bhargava, CEO and co-founder of JumpCloud. We are excited to share how organizations are all around the world are dealing with, digital transformation, identity transformation, security issues, all of the kind of crazy stuff that's going on these days. We say this a lot at JumpCloud. We think that, connecting people to the IT resources that they need is one of the most important things that an IT organization does. And doing that securely, frictionlessly, is probably one of the center points of what an IT organization has to deal with. And when you layer on all the security challenges that are going on today, that's a pretty tall order. So we wanted to share best practices, wanted to share lessons learned, sage advice from folks like Ben, from the very best around the world. And so with that, Ben, welcome. Would love to have you just introduce yourself, introduce your organization. Tell us a little bit about, how you made your way there, and it'd be great to get introduced.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So my name is Ben Schleef. I'm working for now 18 years in hospitality. Before I moved to my current employer, which is a small hotel chain located in Germany called Travel Charme. I worked for an international hotel brand called IG for over 16 years before I moved away there. And well, in there I made my way kind of, through IT, starting from, very low level, like in, IT engineer and IT coordinator, IT manager, and, area director of IT and so on. And now I'm fully responsible for the fate, of this small hotel chain, which is mainly resort hotels, either located by the sea, ocean, or in the mountains. And that's more or less kind of the background where I'm coming from. So there's a lot of experience, especially in hospitality, which is, to some extent, a very, kind of world on its own, right, compared to other I think, normal offices and stuff like that. So we have some requirements, especially when it comes to technology, which needs to be fulfilled, especially because, hotel people are not really technology people, I have to say, right? They need really simple and easy tools they can use each and every day because their main focus is our guests, right? That they
Yeah.
make them happy, and they have all the tools, they can use. And what I always followed is kind of this approach, which I call, pen and paper technology. So if I, hand over you, pen and paper, and say, like, draw something or draw a circle, you don't think, you pick up the pen and draw it. And that's always, the goal, to bring technology to that level, that people don't think about it, they just use it. It feels, second nature. Um, Obviously, right from the past, IG, being a global company, they heavily rely on Microsoft and Active Directory and all that good stuff. When I moved over to Travel Charm, I have to say I found a similar environment, very heavy, reliant on Microsoft and Active Directory and DNS and all that good stuff. But unfortunately, we got a bit right. We got a bit of ransomware, to put it that way,
Oh,
and
ouch.
um, and that gave me the opportunity in leading that company to a bit move away from Microsoft. We still use Office 365 and online exchange and all that good stuff, but everything which is related to a domain controller, DNS, group policies, a domain, is no longer there. It's completely now with JumpCloud. Right, we had, I found several things we integrated into JumpCloud. Before that, we were, kind of having our own radio server for authentication. We integrate that over. We're starting at the moment to move over to JumpCloud's password manager. We used 1Password before, and it's stuff like that, right? Which is really great to see, because it makes our life easier, for my team, and also for the end user. And I think it's the way forward, and lots of stuff to come. And the other interesting point is, we had in the past a lot of servers, right? We were running even our own dedicated Exchange service on property, which is I think a nightmare for each and every security person in the world. I
Yep.
have to be honest, because maintaining that and having the knowledge to maintain it in a secure way, while an Exchange server of yourself is in the internet, and you replicate this by, I don't know, 13 hotels, right? And they are all outdated. It's not great. So, and all these other servers we had, like file servers, print servers, really, a typical Microsoft infrastructure.
Yep.
We kind of moved away from that. What my people, after the ransomware, wanted to set up all those servers again, I said, stop. Apart from JumpCloud, we're doing it a different way. So we turned over to Google Cloud to kind of host, right, our servers no longer, on property, but move them in the cloud. And the way then we connect everything is with the help of radius authentication and with the help of JumpCloud having secure VPN. We're also utilizing Cisco Meraki for that, to have secure connection to those servers, to provide that service, right, from a central place, and no longer, property by property, very isolated. So I think that's also an interesting approach you don't see often in hospitality, because people either don't trust the client. There are many things, right? It seems to be kind of either you believe in it or not, which sounds weird, but many people stick with their good old, on property service, for whatever reason, and maintaining it over and over again. I have a colleague of mine I recently spoke to, and they needed to renew their whole Active Directory because it was outdated, because it came end of life, whatever they had, I think server 2012 or so, which came end of life now. And he says it's a nightmare, right, to fix all this on the fly while the company is still fully operating, serving guests. Is also a hotel chain. I don't put any names out there, but he says it's a nightmare with all that replication and issues, and also a part, right? Money is also a key thing. They spend really tons, right, in putting into Microsoft to buy those licenses and help and stuff like that, just to renew, because their domain is outdated.
Yeah.
And the way I follow it with this pen and paper approach and kind of evergreen IT, which is kind of renewing itself all the way through, right? So you don't need to wait until this big bang happens to you and you say, oh, now we need to kind of pull everything apart and stick it together, and it needs to be new, and some stuff is not compatible to each other, and what a mess. So I think that those are kind of interesting things.
What gave you the courage to you were in an all Microsoft shop, Travel Charme was all Microsoft before you got there. What gave you the courage to say, we need to do this differently? Was it because of the ransomware attack that you were like, hey, we can't keep living this way? But even still, it takes a lot of courage to, especially in an industry that is, focused on Microsoft and maybe a little more rigid in how they think of it, because that's the way it's worked for them for many, many years. What gave you the courage to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it is, it's hard to say, right? I just moved ahead. Obviously, you always have, I'm a curious person. I always look around for the better solution, because it's an ever evolving market, right? And that for sure.
Yeah.
But also in hospitality, and hospitality by its nature is always behind, right? If you compare to any other industry, I can almost guarantee you, all the hospitality companies from a technology approach, they're behind. They're behind all these other industries. And it's kind of a thing that I say, you can change that. You can be ahead, right? You can be, leading by example and saying, right, it is working in our industry, and it's something, right, people can then replicate and learn from, and move away from that, good old fashioned, technology they're using. And it's also, I think, I have to say, what really helped to get kind of right, I would say the investment, right, from the owners of the company, obviously was a bit of the ransomware, because then, right, the acknowledgement was there, right? It is so dangerous to have an outdated, IT environment, right? And they need to invest into IT, because it's fundamentally, it's their foundation. If I pull the plug, the company goes broke. It's really simple as that.
Yeah.
Because if you see all of our systems, if it's our reservation system or property management system or point of sale system, you just name it, all depends on IT. If you pull the plug, that's it. It's over, right?
And
And
it's
I
interesting
think
that
realizing that is important.
it's so interesting that you just said that it's so central, and yet hospitality is behind. So, what do you think, like, what was the business case that you made outside of, again, just the ransomware and that to say, no, we should be ahead. We should be modern. We should be, pushing forward. Were there business benefits that you could say to the owners that, hey, I think we can grow revenue. I think we can be more efficient. I think we can ultimately have a better experience for our guests. Were there any case, was there a case that you made in that direction?
I had to act really quickly, but I think some of the things you just mentioned, I mentioned as well. It's kind of speed of development, right? The flexibility you get with it, and also security was a major point, and also the efficiency. Nevertheless, right, we're opening 3 more hotels. We're adding right to our portfolio.
That's great. Yeah.
And adding those hotels, right? And if you see it from an efficiency perspective, how much resources I need to put into an hotel opening, if everything is kind of centrally hosted and organized, right, I can almost open these hotels like snap of a finger, because everything is already there. I just need to plug in a good internet line and a good backup internet line, ship them some laptops, PCs, whatever they need, monitors, and they're almost good to go. Apart from a few things. And I've opened hotels, I don't know, countless hotels across whole of Europe, right? And it was always a challenge, right? Getting hotel, opened up, right? With all that heavy infrastructure you need to provide, and setting it up and configuring it in a secure way and so on. If you do that work once and you have a great blueprint, right? It gives you so much efficiency. And in the end, right, there's always, right, from my experience, hospitality is avoiding OpEx cost, right? For whatever reason, I don't get it. They rather do an investment for, I don't know, 5 years or 10 years and say, hey, we once did the big investment, now we don't want to hear anything from IT anymore. So that is changing, right? It's a constant investment into IT. And I think if you maintain it in a good way, you're even going to be break even or even cheaper in the long run, right? And that was also one of my arguments, saying, I know it sounds very expensive in the beginning when we set all this up, and we have a kind of a different cost model, but long term, you profit so much from it. We need less resources to maintain stuff because it's centrally. I need less people in my team to manage more hotels in the end, right? Which is a good argument to say, hey, and we can manage it in a secure way, updates happening automatically, right? If we see, stuff like patch management, when we can centralize that, because we don't have IT managers on property. So, and, having that idea to kind of saying, either we hire people each and everywhere in all of our properties and pay them and, they sit around and do stuff, or we centralize that in a really smart way that also benefits in the end, right, our employees. And if it's a benefit for our employees, they can focus on the stuff they really need to do, focusing on the guests, make them happy. Right. That they return back to us and bring more revenue to us, because they recommend our hotels the same way. If they had a great experience, right? It's like it's like if you read about a great hotel, you say, yeah, maybe I visited. If one of your friends is telling you, right, I was at that hotel and I had the greatest time ever, right? The stuff was so great, the food was perfect, and the environment was great. Chances are much, much higher, that you're going to visit that hotel in your next vacation.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how it works.
Yeah. You said something really interesting to me earlier. You said that you use Microsoft 365 and then you use GCP. So that is fascinating to me. So why the dual solutions, and why didn't you go with Azure for, kind of the work that you're doing in GCP? Most people think if you're on Microsoft 365, you're just going to use Azure, but you went a different direction. Why?
I think the reason for that is is, we looked into Azure. I also looked into AWS as a service, and obviously then, GCP. And, what I found out from all the, testings I did, in my previous life, right, playing around with those solutions, seeing their APIs and their possibilities. And I know that, for instance, AWS is great, right? It's it's no wonder that they rule the market.
Yeah.
And I know that GCP is a bit behind, and they're trying to catch up with them. But what I found is a bit similar also to JumpCloud, right? GCP is easy to use. Right,
Yeah.
it's the ease to use. It's kind of the most brilliant idea Google ever had was that kind of, hey, you go to Google, you have that little box, you type in some text. That's their user interface.
Yeah.
It's the smartest user interface ever. Right,
Yeah.
there's no more buttons, no nothing, and it works. Right, and up till today. And testing the other ones, although there might be a better integration, I found the Azure cloud a bit awful, to be honest, to that extent, although I'm heavily, right, depending on Microsoft services, Word and, all which is
Yeah.
in there in Office 365. I found it, easier even to combine that with GCP. And in the cloud world, I guess, right, there are so many interfaces, APIs, available, that you can have a choice in the end, right?
Yeah.
If you think that product is better for me, it's kind of, you go shopping in a supermarket, right? And you put it off the shelf, and everything can work together, right? You just need to be smart about it. And what are your requirements? What do you expect from a solution? And right, this is where we ended up with GCP hosting our service, and it's also powering, right, all their database and authentication. It's also powering our guest app, which is used by our guests.
Yep.
And there's also an integration, right, that they can, in the future can chat, with our employees. If there's something, if you need a pillow, make a, whatever,
Yep.
table reservation on our restaurants and
Yep.
stuff like that, and it works, right? It's all, you can all combine it. You just need to be, I think, thinking about, what do you want is important, that you have an idea of where do you want to go in the future. And if that is kind of clear in your mind, you kind of, just, it's just a huge puzzle. You find the right pieces and put them all together. And at some point you have a great picture.
And, that's what JumpCloud's goal was, to let you put those pieces together so that we could be kind of the glue to make it so that Microsoft 365 or AWS or GCP or Mac or Linux, any of those things could kind of come together. So hopefully we're serving some of that purpose for you of being the glue. But maybe,
I mean, absolutely. For instance, we, in the company, it is kind of a, still it's a bit weird for my team. We have around, I don't know, 6, 7, MacBooks around. Because when we started with JumpCloud, everything was Windows, right? And we say, okay, now we have JumpCloud. We also can, have MacBooks. And some of the users, were so excited to say, I can have a MacBook, right?
Yeah.
At my company, really? Yes, and it's all managed, and we put all the same stuff like on a Windows machine, and we can manage it. We can see what's going on. We can support you and stuff like that. Although my team needs to get used to Apple a bit more, to be honest, but that's kind of the great thing, right? And everybody who ever has tried to integrate Apple devices into an Active Directory knows how hard that is, right?
Yep.
And that, those kind of, solutions, right? Those are the ones, I personally look for. And I think, right, they are fit for the future.
Yeah, that's awesome, Ben. Well, thank you. This was amazing. Really appreciate you taking the time, sharing some of the journey that you and Travel Charme have been on. So appreciate you spending a few minutes with us.
Most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.